When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I saw was the sunlight sliding through the half-closed blinds. It was soft and golden, the kind of light that makes you believe the world is still kind. My hand reached instinctively for the drawer beside the bed where I kept my wedding ring. But all that met my fingers was cool, empty metal. For a moment, I thought maybe the nurse had moved it when they changed my sheets. Then I remembered my ring wasn't here. I had left it at home inside the small blue jewelry box on my dresser. The one my husband gave me 40 years ago when we bought our first house. It was supposed to be waiting for me. Everything was supposed to be waiting for me. The doctor said I was lucky. A mild stroke, caught early. Rest and calm, they said. 2 words I've heard all my life and never quite learned how to obey. Rest doesn't come easy when you've spent 50 years trying to hold a family together with your bare hands. Still, I smiled, thanked them, and tried to believe I was lucky. My son, Daniel, came the next day. He stood in the doorway, clean-cut, polite, checking his watch between every sentence. His wife, Amber, was with him, tall, perfect hair, nails shining like little mirrors. She smiled at me with those lips that never really reached the eyes. "Mom," Daniel said, "the doctors say you'll be home soon. We'll take care of everything." I nodded. "The house okay?" He laughed lightly. Still standing, Amber chimed in. "Don't worry about a thing, Lila, we're handling it." Something in her tone felt like a door closing softly. The days blurred. The nurses were kind, though their smiles carried that faint pity people reserve for the old, the kind. That says you're fading, and we both know it. I kept thinking of home, the smell of cinnamon, the slow ticking of the clock in the hallway, my jewelry box resting on the dresser. I used to open it just to look at the things that had outlasted time. My engagement ring. My mother's pearls, a gold cross my husband bought after our first miscarriage. They weren't worth much to anyone else, but to me, they were the story of my life. A week later, they discharged me. Daniel picked me up in his car, neat as always, faint smell of cologne and paperwork. "You look good, Mom," he said. "I feel like an old cat someone pulled out of the rain," I replied. He chuckled, but it didn't sound like him. We drove mostly in silence. The whole way home, Amber's phone kept lighting up with messages. She didn't hide it, didn't turn it over. She just scrolled, smiled, and said nothing. When we reached the house, my heart squeezed. The curtains were open wider than I ever left them. There were new flowers on the porch, bright but soulless, as if they'd been chosen for a magazine photo instead of a home. "You were decorated," I said softly. "Just a few touches," Amber replied, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. I smiled, though my stomach twisted. I've learned over time that silence is its own armor. That night, I went to my room. Everything looked neat. My dresser shone, freshly polished. The blue jewelry box sat in the same place like a loyal dog. I opened it, empty, every piece gone. My hands froze midair. The room went quiet in that strange way rooms do when they're hiding something. My first thought wasn't anger. It was disbelief, the kind that sits heavy, pressing the breath out of you. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered, "No. No. Not you, baby." I wasn't talking to the jewelry. I was talking to Daniel. To the boy who once cried when he dropped my wedding ring down the sink at age 8. The same boy who promised he'd buy me 100 rings when he grew up. I wanted to believe there was some explanation. Maybe they moved the pieces for safekeeping. Maybe Amber took them to clean. But deep down, my bones already knew the truth. Age doesn't make you blind, it just makes your vision sharper where it hurts most. The next morning, I asked Daniel gently, "Did you move my jewelry?" "I can't find it." He looked startled for half a second, then relaxed quickly. "Oh, yeah. Amber took it to have it cleaned." "It was dusty." "Dusty?" I smiled faintly. "It's been sitting in that box for years." I never minded the dust. Amber appeared from the kitchen holding a cup of tea. "Don't worry, Lila. They'll be back before you know it." I wanted to believe her. I even thanked her. But when someone lies with that much ease, you feel it in the air, heavy and cold, like rain about to fall. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up, walked to the living room, and saw Amber's purse open on the couch. Inside, a small velvet pouch peeked out. My pouch. The one that held my wedding band and mother's pearls. I didn't touch it. I just stared until the room blurred through my tears. I turned off the light, went back to my room, and closed the door. Some battles aren't fought with words. Some are fought with waiting. Asterisk asterisk. The morning came, but peace did not. I made coffee, even though it tasted of nothing. I've always believed a kitchen should sound alive, the spoon clinking against the mug, the kettle's sigh, the hum of life itself. But that morning, everything felt rehearsed, like actors repeating lines they no longer believed in. Daniel came downstairs in a rush, adjusting his tie. "Mom will be out most of the day," he said, grabbing his keys. "Amber's got some errands to run." I nodded. "You've both been busy lately." He smiled, distracted. That's life, right? He kissed my cheek, and for a second I caught a glimpse of my boy. The same boy who once brought me dandelions from the park, his hands dirty but his heart clean. That second passed quickly. Amber followed behind, sunglasses on though it wasn't sunny. She smiled all teeth, no warmth, and said, "Don't worry, Lila. Try to rest." I waited until the sound of their car faded. Then I sat at the table, staring at the clock. Its slow ticking filled the whole house. It sounded almost cruel, like time itself was watching me lose everything I once held dear. When Doris from next door came by with a casserole, she found me sitting there, still holding my cold coffee. "Lila, you okay, honey?" she asked, her voice as soft as the biscuits she used to make for the church bake sale. "I'm fine," I said automatically. The biggest lie women my age tell. She didn't believe it, of course. She sat down, the kind of friend who doesn't wait for an invitation. "You're not fine," she said. "And I'm not leaving till you tell me what's wrong." I hesitated. Shame is a strange thing. You can live through storms, through hunger and death. But the thought that your own child might have betrayed you, that shame cuts deeper than any wound. I looked at her, my voice a whisper. "They took my jewelry, Doris, every last piece." Her eyes widened. "You mean?" "I mean the box is empty. My son says it's being cleaned." "But I saw it, Doris, my pouch was in her purse." She shook her head slowly. "The way old folks do when words aren't enough." "Lord have mercy," she muttered. "What you gonna do?" "Nothing," I said quietly. "Not yet," she leaned forward. "You can't let that woman walk all over you?" "I'm not," I said. "I'm just waiting to see how far she's willing to walk." Doris sighed. "You always been patient, Lila. But don't mistake patience for weakness." I smiled faintly. "Oh? I know the difference. Weakness bends. Patience watches." After she left, I went to my room again. The blue box sat there, still empty, still pretending to hold something. I touched it, tracing the worn edges. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror, older, yes, but not defeated. I thought of my husband, how he used to say, "You can tell a person's soul by how they treat what can't talk back." My jewelry couldn't talk, but my silence could. That night, I heard whispering downstairs. Amber's voice, sharp and hurried. Daniel's, quieter, uncertain. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone told me enough. Money, always money. Amber wanted more space, more shine, more of what was never hers to begin with. Daniel, my poor boy, wanted peace, and in trying to keep it, he already lost it. I sat in the dark, listening, my hand resting on my chest where my cross necklace used to be. I remembered how I used to touch it when I prayed for him as a child, when he had asthma, when he failed his first job interview, when his wife first came around. I had prayed for protection. I never thought I'd need to pray for protection from him. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. That's something old women do better than anyone, pretend. I made breakfast, asked Daniel about work, complimented Amber's dress. She smiled as if she hadn't stolen the last piece of me that still felt alive. Some thieves don't wear masks. They wear lipstick and perfume and call you mom. Later that day, I called the jeweler downtown, the one who cleaned my husband's watch years ago. I described my pieces, asked if anyone had brought them in. He hesitated for a moment, then said, "Yes, ma'am. A young woman came by last week with items matching that description. She said they belonged to her grandmother." "Did she sell them?" I asked. "She tried. But we don't buy without paperwork." "She said she'd come back." "Did she leave her name?" "Yes, ma'am. Amber Price." I thanked him, hung up, and sat very still. The air around me felt different, thinner, sharper, almost metallic. That's what truth feels like sometimes. Cold, but clean. That evening, when they returned home, Amber looked radiant, her nails freshly done, her perfume too sweet. Daniel looked tired. I waited until after dinner. Then I said softly, "Amber, did you take my jewelry to the jeweler last week?" She froze, just for a second, then smiled. "Oh, yes. I wanted to make sure they were insured properly." "I thought I told you, you didn't." "Well, now you know," she said with that same syrupy tone. I looked at her, really looked at her. "Did you tell them you were my granddaughter?" The color drained from her face. Daniel looked up, confused. "Amber." She laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous, Lila. Who told you that?" "The jeweler," I said calmly. "He's an old friend." The silence that followed could have swallowed the house. Daniel's fork clinked against the plate. Amber stood up, muttering something about needing air. The door slammed behind her. Daniel rubbed his temples. "Mom," he said. "Why are you making things worse?" "Worse?" I repeated softly. "Daniel, I just asked a question. You're always suspicious," he snapped. "You never liked her." "That's not true," I said. "I don't dislike her. I just don't trust her." He stood up, angry, confused, maybe ashamed. "I can't do this," he said, and left too. I sat alone at that table. with the plate still warm and the clock still ticking. Somewhere outside, a dog barked and the wind rattled the window. My house had never felt so full of people and so empty of love. I looked at my hands. The same hands that raised him, fed him, wiped his tears. They were shaking, but not from fear, from resolve. The kind that grows quietly when a woman realizes she's all she's got left, and in that silence, I whispered to myself, all right, Lord, if they want a lesson, let it be gentle. But let it be clear, asterisk asterisk. I didn't sleep that night. The house was too still, and my mind too loud. Every tick of the clock sounded like a question I didn't want to answer. What did I do wrong? Was it love that made me blind? Or pride that made me silent? I wanted to believe Daniel had just been fooled, that his wife had wrapped him so tightly in her world that he forgot who he came from. But maybe that's the lie mothers tell themselves to stay standing. I got up before dawn and made tea. The sky outside was a dull gray, that color between night and morning when everything seems possible, and nothing feels real. I opened the window and let the cold air bite my cheeks. You've got to be smart now, I told myself quietly. Not bitter, just smart. Around 9 a.m., I called the bank. I'd never been one for online accounts, but I asked them to mail me the recent statements. The young man on the phone spoke too fast, like youth always does. He didn't know he was talking to a woman who'd already lost more than he could imagine. I thanked him anyway, then I called Pastor Green. He'd been at my husband's funeral 20 years ago, and hadn't changed much, same slow voice, same kind eyes. When he answered, he said, Lila, it's been a while. You doing all right? I smiled faintly. Define all right, Pastor. He chuckled softly. What's wrong, child? Someone's stealing from me, I said. And the worst part is, I raised him. He was silent for a moment. Daniel? Not his hands, but his house. He lets it happen. That's a heavy burden, Lila. It's lighter when you stop pretending it's not there. He asked if I needed money, help, a place to stay. I told him no. I don't need rescue, Pastor. I just need a plan. You always had one, he said. Even when you didn't, after the call, I went to my sewing room. The one place in the house untouched by anyone else. On the shelf sat a small metal box full of old receipts, insurance papers, and a notebook with my husband's handwriting on the first page. I sat there for a long time, running my fingers over his words. Don't let the world make you hard, Lila. But don't let it fool you twice. Those words had kept me alive before. They would do it again. The mail arrived 2 days later. Among the bills and coupons were the bank statements I requested. I opened them slowly, like peeling a wound that hadn't healed. There they were, transfers I didn't recognize, small amounts at first, then larger. $1 to $100, $800, $2,500, always around the same dates Daniel or Amber had stopped by. The account had bled quietly for months, and I hadn't even noticed. My signature appeared at the bottom of one of the transfers, only it wasn't mine. I placed the papers on the table, lined them neatly, and whispered, all right, then. You wrote your story in ink. Let me write mine. That evening, I called Brenda, my old coworker from the clinic. She retired a few years ago but still knew her way around paperwork. Lila, honey, what's going on? She asked. I need you to help me look at something. But not with your heart, with your eyes. Brenda came over with her reading glasses and a folder full of colored pens. We spread the statements across my table like pieces of a puzzle. These signatures don't match, Lila, she said after a while. This one's traced. Can you prove that? I can show the difference. And I know someone who'll verify it for free. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us knowing what that meant. Legal action, confrontation, shame. I wasn't afraid of losing the money. I was afraid of losing the last thing that tied my son to me. But then Brenda said something that stuck to my bones, Lila. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's surrender. That night I prayed. Not the kind of prayer you say out loud, the kind that lives between your ribs. I didn't ask for justice, or revenge, or even understanding. I asked for calm hands, for the wisdom to act without anger. The next morning, I put on my gray coat and walked to the small legal aid office downtown. I'd walked past it 100 times, never thinking I'd need it. The woman there, Miss Perez, listened quietly as I told her everything. She didn't interrupt, didn't pity me. When I was done, she said, you can file a complaint for financial elder abuse, Mrs. Price. You have proof, and the law's on your side. I don't want to destroy my son, I said. She smiled gently. Then maybe you just want to wake him up. I left with a folder of forms, and a heart that felt both heavier and lighter. Heavier because it meant facing what I'd avoided. Lighter because now I had direction. That night, Daniel came home late. He didn't expect me to be waiting in the living room. Lights dimmed, tea steaming on the table. He looked surprised. Mom, why are you up? I couldn't sleep, I said. Thought maybe we could talk. He hesitated, then sat across from me. He looked tired, older somehow, like life had started catching up with him. Daniel, I began. When you were little, you used to tell me I was your hero. Do you remember that? He smiled faintly. I was 6, Mom. Yes, and I told you heroes don't wear capes. They just tell the truth. He looked down at his hands. Is this about the jewelry again? No, I said softly. It's about who you've become. He started to protest, but I raised a hand. I know what she's done. I know what you've let her do. And I know it's easier to stay silent when the person you love is the one doing wrong. But silence doesn't make you innocent, son. It just makes you smaller. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice cracked. Mom, I didn't want to believe she'd actually. You did believe it. I interrupted gently. You just didn't want to face it. He rubbed his eyes, whispering, I'll fix it. No, I said. You won't, I will. And for the first time, he didn't argue asterisk. The next morning I woke before sunrise. The sky was still blue-black and the house was quiet. That deep kind of silence that comes right before something changes. I boiled water, poured tea into my husband's old mug, and sat at the table where he used to read his newspaper every morning. I looked at the stack of papers in front of me, bank statements, the jeweler's note, my signed affidavit from the legal aid office. They looked harmless, like just paper and ink, but together, they were the story of a betrayal. At 8 sharp, I called the bank manager. Mr. Whitfield. He'd known me for years. He even came to my husband's funeral. When I told him what was happening, he didn't sound surprised, just sad. Mrs. Price, he said softly, I'll personally look into this. We'll get your account protected right away. I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be sorry, I said. Just make sure it doesn't happen again. He promised to call me back that afternoon. I hung up the phone, then went to my dresser and looked at the empty jewelry box again. It was strange. I no longer felt grief when I saw it. Just distance. It wasn't what was missing that hurt anymore. It was what it revealed. A few hours later, a police officer named Sergeant Miller came by. A kind young man, polite, respectful. He asked me some questions, took copies of the documents and said he'd file a report. We'll contact your son and his wife for questioning, he said. I shook my head. Not yet, I said quietly. Please give me a little time first. He hesitated, then nodded. Of course, ma'am. I understand. When he left, I stood by the window and watched his car pull away. The neighborhood looked the same. Kids riding bikes, Doris trimming her hedges, the mailman making his rounds. Life doesn't stop when yours cracks open. That's the hardest part. That evening, Daniel came home alone. His shoulders sagged under the weight of something he wasn't ready to name. He didn't even look at me at first. Amber left, he said finally. His voice sounded hollow. I just nodded. For good. He shrugged. She said she needed space. I think she meant she needed time to hide. He sat down across from me, rubbing his temples. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped her sooner. I was just trying to keep the peace. I looked at him quietly. Son, peace isn't something you keep by ignoring the truth. It's something you build by living in it. He nodded, eyes glistening. Can I make it right? I smiled faintly. You can start by remembering who you are. He cried then, not loud, not broken, just quiet tears that come when a man realizes how far he's fallen. I didn't move to comfort him. Sometimes love means letting someone feel the full weight of what they've done. The next morning, I received a call from the bank. Mr. Whitfield said they'd confirmed the forged signatures and reversed the recent transfers. My funds were safe again. He also told me Amber had attempted another withdrawal the week before, but it had been blocked. When they froze the account, you did the right thing, Mrs. Price, he said. I thanked him and hung up. I walked to my front porch and sat in the sunlight. The air smelled of lilacs, the same flowers my husband planted decades ago. For the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply. That's when Doris came by again, holding her coffee mug. So, she asked, sitting down beside me. What happened? She left, I said simply. Good riddance, Doris muttered. And your son? Still here, I said softly, trying to find his way back. She looked at me for a long moment. You gotta forgive him? I smiled faintly. I already did. I just haven't told him yet. She laughed, shaking her head. You're a better woman than me. No, I said. Just an older one. We sat there quietly. Two old souls watching the street that had seen too much and changed to little. Later that evening, Daniel came to my room. He held a small envelope in his hand. Inside was a check for the jewelry Amber had sold behind my back. I tracked it down, he said. It's not everything, but it's what she got. I wanted you to have it. I looked at the envelope, then at him. Keep it, I said. You'll need it more than I do. Mom, no. Son. This isn't about money. It's about learning. He He sat down beside me, head bowed. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I reached out and touched his hand. That's how forgiveness works, baby. None of us deserve it. We just try to live better because of it. He broke then, really broke, and I let him. Because that's what love does. It doesn't fix people. It gives them a place to fall apart safely. The next day, I packed Amber's leftover things into a small box and left it on the porch with a note. It said only one line: you took my jewelry, but you can't take my peace. And with that, I closed the door, locked it, and walked to the window. The sun was setting, golden soft like it always is when a chapter ends. I whispered a small prayer, not for justice, not for revenge, but for peace. Real peace, the kind that doesn't depend on what you've lost, but on what you've chosen to keep. It's strange how peace arrives. It doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or grand signs from heaven. It slips in quietly like the dawn through an old curtain, and you only notice it when the light touches something that used to hurt. Weeks passed. The police closed the case. Amber never came back. A neighbor said she'd moved to another state. I didn't wish her harm. Truth has a way of following us, no matter how far we run, and I knew hers would too. Daniel began visiting more often. At first he came out of guilt. I could see it in his eyes, the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. But guilt fades, and what was left, thank God, was love. Not the kind you shout about. The quiet kind. The kind that sets a cup of tea on your bedside table before you wake. One Sunday morning, he asked if he could take me to church. I hadn't gone since before my stroke. I used to sit in the second pew, right under the cracked stained glass window of St. Mark kneeling before the lion. When we walked in, Pastor Green smiled from the pulpit. Well, he said, look who's finally come home. We laughed softly. Daniel and I, and for the first time in months, laughter didn't sting. After service, I sat in the back garden of the church while Daniel talked with old friends. The sunlight fell across the roses, and I remembered how my husband used to say that pain was just another kind of pruning necessary. If you want to bloom again. Maybe he was right. When we got home, Daniel made lunch: burnt grilled cheese, too much butter, not enough care, but I ate every bite. You've forgotten how to cook, I teased. He grinned, shy like a boy again. Guess you'll have to teach me. Guess I will, I said that night after he left. I walked through my house. Every room looked different, somehow still mine, but quieter, humbler. I stopped by my dresser. The jewelry box sat there, empty as ever. I opened it, ran my fingers inside, and smiled. I realized something: the jewelry was never what made me feel rich. It was the memories attached to it, the nights, the laughter, the promises. They were still here, woven into the air, the walls, the very rhythm of my breathing. I picked up my late husband's photograph and whispered, we did all right, didn't we? Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Somewhere a radio played an old gospel tune. I closed my eyes and listened. It wasn't the sound of victory or defeat, just life continuing, steady and soft. And in that small, ordinary moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. Forgiveness doesn't erase what's been done. It just stops it from owning you. I forgave my son. I forgave his wife. And in a way, I forgave myself for trusting too easily, for loving without guardrails, for being human. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, I watch the sunset the way you watch an old friend walk away down a quiet road, knowing you'll see them again tomorrow. Some nights, Daniel joins me. He brings coffee. I bring silence. We don't talk much. We don't need to. Every once in a while, he looks over and says, thanks for not giving up on me. And I smile. Because mothers don't know how to give up. We just learn when to let go. The jewelry's gone. But my peace is worth more than gold.